all fitting well out there. Thanks for tuning in yet again. Back in 2006, I was invited to write some songs for a BBC Radio 2 series called the Radio Ballads, based on the Ewan MacColl Radio Ballads of the 1950s and 60s. And little did I know back in 2006 that it would be another 15 years that I would be involved in the project with 3 or 4 different series, different subjects. Tonight I'm going to sing some songs that I've written. I wrote altogether probably over 50. Not all of them were used, but most of them were used. Over 50 songs for the Radio Ballads series. And some of them tonight I'm going to do it. I've never actually sung in public before myself. So a few deep cuts for you. But I'm going to start off with a couple of songs that I wrote for the first programme that I was involved with, The Ballad of the Big Ships, and 2 songs which I very quickly absorbed into my regular repertoire of songs, and this is one of them. This is called Taking on Men. There's a call on the dock that they're taking on men. They're taking on men. Idle time's over. They're taking on men. So get out of your bed and get down there. Well, there's talk of big paybacks, 15-month contracts for skilled men and labourers, clerks and apprentices. Oh, Swan shouts to Neptune. They're taking on men, and they're heading in droves to the river. And the gates are wide open. They're taking on men. They're taking on men. There's keels to be laid in dry dock and dry pen to build on a fine reputation. Well, these good lads have died for it, fought with the Clyde for it, rivaled with Barrow from Wallsend to Giotto. Now it's gone in our favour, it's good times again. I tell you, it's just like the old days. And that sweet ring of chains means they're taking on men. They're taking on men. And steel scraping concrete, they're taking on men. It's a lullaby straight off the water. Well, they'll hold plate and pipe as their language gets ripe. There'll be bells ringing, horns blaring, crack of the dawn swearing. Things have never been this good since God knows when. We'll be sneezing and satin in no time. Taking on men, they were taking on men. We took it for granted that them taking on men would always be how we make our wages. But some say that needy days turned into greedy days. Now the kings of this industry are Polish and Japanese, and gone are the days they were taking on men. And the quayside's a drunken man's playground. Yes, gone are the days they were taking on men. So get back to your bed and your memories. There's a call on the dock that they're taking on men. They're taking on men. Your idle time's over, they're taking on men. So get out of your bed and get down there. 'Cause they're heading in droves to the river. Taking On Men from the Ballad of the Big Ships. And another song from the same programme. What we did, or what was done by the Radio Ballads team, was they talked to shipyard workers, ex-shipyard workers of course, because the shipyards had closed down by this time, 2006, on the River Tyne and on the River Clyde, and asked them about their work and the way of life that they'd led and the jobs that they'd done down in the docks and in the shipyards. And this song is called Black Trade. It's a song I usually sing with my band, the Bad Pennies. And the Black Trade, that was what they called themselves, the workers, anybody who worked in the bowels of the ship, in the hull of the ship when it was being made, doing dirty jobs with all the rust and all the muck and dust and everything else, all the grime. They were known as the Black Trade. And at the beginning of the song, what I did, I listed all the different jobs that these guys were doing. So it's like a bit of a sort of a chant at the beginning and at the end of the song. So this is the song of the Black Trade. Boilersmiths and platemen, gaugers and pipe fitters, sparks and sheet metal workers, riggers, jacksmiths, pilots and carpenters, clavers and laggers, your pullers and dabbers, your black trade. A half-7 horn as you crawl as a mob through the gates into hell with a tab in your gob. Big box of peace book, a hammer and dab. The day lasts a lifetime, your life is your job. When you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black trade. Your family need you to do as needs must. To the mercy of metal and madness you trust, in the keels and the girdles of darkness and dust, in a deadly concoction of sweat fumes and rust. When you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black. The bane of your life lies there snug in the slips. She's round at the stern and she's wide at the hips, but she's proud at the bow and the pounce on her lips says this nation's an island needs ships. So you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black. Draftsmen and joiners come all spick and span, with their overalls creased, shirt and tie to a man, while you're up to your eyes in a plateless tan. You'll be fitting out with them one day if you can, but you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black trade, oh, you black. Your black trade, all you welders and riveters and boilersmiths and platemen, gaugers and pipe fitters, sparks and sheet metal workers, riggers, coppersmiths, red leggers and hard drinkers, cablers and laggers, your pullers and dabbers, your welders and riveters and boilersmiths and platemen, gaugers and pipe fitters, sparks and sheet metal workers, riggers, coppersmiths, red leggers and hard cablers and ladders, your pulleys and gabbers, your black trade. Song of the Black Trade. And here's one more song from the Ballad of the Big Ships, and this is one which it's a new one to me, really. I wrote it and we recorded it. Most of the songs that I wrote for the series, for all of the series, I rarely sang them myself. They were passed on to other singers. So I think great singer from Derbyshire, Barry Coop, sang this next one, and it's called The Caps and Cards. And this song was written based on more or less directly what one of the fellas had to say that they interviewed. And what he was saying was that it was expected when the ships were launched, when they went down the slipway at the end of the job, the workers were meant to throw their caps into the air and cheer for the launch, while all the big wigs and all the important people were on the balcony drinking champagne and stuff like that. But what he said was that what the impression they had was when they threw the caps up, it was their unemployment cards that came back down. So this is a song called Caps and Cards. Your caps went up and your cards came down. So I thought I'd give this a shot. And it goes like this. There were 3 cheers for the broken bottle, 3 cheers for the froth on the bow, 3 cheers for the good ship Lady Luck. Then your caps went up and your cards came down. She was bare bones in a concrete cradle, but her skin hard as hell wrapped around. You nursed her, you nourished her, you wished her well. Then your caps went up and your cards came down. One day she's all ends and riggings, next she's dead in her bonnet and gown. Then she slips away without a bye or leave, and your caps went up and your cards came down. I loved her when she was young, you know. I watched her grow to be the talk of the town. How can you but feel you've been sold down the river, and your caps went up and your cards came down? Let's drink to the broken hearted, the ship welder, the lantern and cloud. There's plenty more ships in the sea they're ragging, and your caps went up and your cards came down. So here's 3 cheers for the broken bottle, 3 cheers for the froth on the bow, 3 cheers for the good ship Lady Luck. And your caps went up, but your cards came down. Your caps went up, and your cards came down. Caps and Cards. There was about 6 programmes in that first series of Radio Ballads back in 2006. The first programme was about the steelworkers, and that was the pilot programme, so I wasn't involved in that. That was mainly John Tams, and who did the songs for that, other people as well. But I came on for the rest 5 programmes. The Ballad of the Big Ships was one, and here's a couple of songs from a programme called Swings and Roundabouts, and this was about the travelling fairgrounds, the carnivals that travel around Britain all during the summertime and spring and summertime. And these are two songs which actually I've never sung myself. And the first one's called Scholars in Winter. And I don't know who sung this one. I think, again, it was Barry Coop that sang this one on the programme. But it's a song that was based on, I thought, a true thing for me, because when I was at primary school, junior school, back in the colliery villages of East Durham, at the end of the first term, so around October, November time, we'd have a bunch of kids would come into the school, and they would just stay for a few months, keep themselves to themselves. And it turns out these were the children of the carnival people, and they would come to school just for the winter time, and then when the spring came, they were off again with their families travelling around with the travelling fairground. So this is a song called Scholars in Winter. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. And it's actually a song that every time I've made a new album since 2006, every time I make an album, I always record a version of this song, but we never ever use it. So I don't know why, but there you go. So this is Scholars in Winter. Favourite song of mine, but this is the first time you've probably heard it. It goes like this. If I had the books and songs, if I had the letters, would I be looking back on a life any better? I'd be none the wiser, oh, I wouldn't change a thing. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. My 3 R's and my ABCs, my tables and my numbers, I learned from the badges on the bonnets and the bumpers of the Leylands and the Albions. The comma was the king. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. I counted out the copper and I sorted through the silver. I painted the slogans full bright across the banner. Then I wriggled in that old school desk October's rains would bring. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. Oh, if I'd had the books and songs, if I'd had the letters, would I be looking back on a life any better? No, I'd be none the wiser, oh, I wouldn't change a thing. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. We were scholars in winter, but free birds in spring. Scholars in winter, free birds in spring. Again from the same program, from Swings and Roundabouts, and this is a song which was just the verses of this song made it into the program, and then, like in a lot of the Radio Ballads stuff over the years, I kind of embellished it. Especially some of the later series, I really kind of, the songs were so specific to the programs themselves that I couldn't really take, once they were taken out of the context of the program, they didn't kind of work. So if they had a good melody or a good verse or two, then I would embellish them a bit, change them a bit. And that's what I did with this song. And it was originally, I think it was called We're Building and Setting. And then I put a chorus to the verse and changed the sense of the whole thing. And I gave it to Kate Brownlee, who plays fiddle with me in the Bad Pennies, and she recorded it, made it her own really for her first solo album, way back in about 2008. I'm in Love with the Lad on the Waltzer is what it became. So I thought I'd give this a shot. And the waltzer, of course, is the fairground ride, which I think if anybody from overseas is watching, it's known as the teacups in North America. They spin round and go up and down and goes faster and faster, and then everybody throws up, basically, which is that's the fun of it. So I'll give this a shot. I'm in Love with the Lad on the Waltzer. Goes like this. They're building up, setting up, so much to do. They drove through the night with the rest of the crew. The pitch is all paid for, good weather's been prayed for. They have to be ready for testing by 2. New rides and new sides painted all fresh and bright, all studded with look-money wired up for light. Every nut, bolt and strut where they ought to be put, and she's dressed up and made up for a good time tonight. She's in love with the lad on the waltzer. He makes her heart beat that much faster when he's spinning her round. He keeps spinning her round. She's in love with the lad on the waltzer. It'll all end in tears and disaster, but he's spinning her round. He keeps spinning her round. It's the same pitch they're working this year to the goose that her grandfather and his father put to good use. Same rails, cogs and diesel, same hot dogs and grease, and more bulbs than Blackpool to soak up the juice. And the night ends in lather, through the bright lights they walk. Her dad's on the dodgems, his eyes like a hawk. He nearly blew a fuse, he caught them comparing tattoos, but he was wild in his own time, he's no use to talk. She's in love with the lad on the waltzer. He makes her heart beat that much faster when he's spinning her round. He keeps spinning her round. She's in love with the lad on the waltzer. It'll all end in tears and disaster, but he's spinning her round. He keeps spinning her round. He's spinning her round. He keeps spinning her round. love with the lad on the waltzer. I always wanted to be the lad on the waltzer, but never quite made it. He was the lad who was taking the money, taking the fares for everybody, and always a childhood hero of mine. I'll go into this next one, which from another program. The program was called the Horn of the Hunter, and it was about the fox hunting debate that was raging on in Britain at the time that we did this series of programs. And fox hunting, I think, had just been banned by the government, not before time, in my opinion. But there you go. And there's a lot of words to this. I'm going to crib a few here. But the whole program was about the fox hunting, and there was interviews with people who did the fox hunting, people who were legislating against it, some people who were for fox hunting, some people who were against, and I had to kind of bite the bullet, really. And even though I was very firmly against fox hunting, I had to still write songs on behalf of the people who were giving their point of view that they were for it. So it was a bit of a tough thing for me to do. And anyway, I'll do one song. I did about 4 or 5 songs for this program, and this is one I did. And I think, as I recall, Bob Fox sang this one in the program. So again, it's one I've never sung in public before. I've never done it myself. And it's called, I think it's probably called Good Dog and True. And the chorus of this song, which I'll do after every verse, is based on a ritual, a fox hunter's ritual that one of the fox hunters actually read out on the program. And I kind of plagiarised it a little bit, really, and used it for my own devices. So it's sort of like a weird kind of ritualistic, traditional verse that the fox hunters apparently do at every hunt. And what really struck me, really listening to it mentions the houndsman and this thing, and he says it picks the babblers too. The babblers were the hounds that weren't quite good enough. So not only did they have a very sort of cruel attitude to the fox, they also had cruel attitudes to the hounds themselves, certainly from what they said in the programme. So the babblers, if they weren't up to snuff, if they weren't fitting in with the pack, then that was the end of them. They would pull out the gun and shoot the poor dogs as well as everything else. So it was all a bit strange. So this is Good Dog and True, and see what you make of this one. First to come the whipper-in, and that I'm bound to call you. Keep your pack together as they gather up around you. Set them off and draw them back when their bloody day's through. Come you whipper-in, be a good dog and true. Be a good dog and true, ever true to your master. Run the hare and fox as long as their good legs can carry you. Keep your nose cold, your tail up, be a credit to your father. And your mother and your pack and all belonging to you. Next to come the terrier man, and that I'm bound to call you. Know your quarry, run it to earth through furrow, stream and pasture. Life and death, you speak of respect, you feel the fox's due. Come you terrier man, be a good dog and true. Be a good dog and true, ever true to your master. Run the hare and fox as long as your good legs can carry you. Keep your nose cold, your tail up, be a credit to your father. And your mother and your pack and all belonging to you. Next to come the houndsman, and that I'm bound to call you. You know you pack the name and mark the names and wilds in nature. Pair the couples young and old, but pick the babblers too. Come you houndsman, come, be a good dog and true. Be a good dog and true, ever true to your master. Run the hare and fox as long as your good legs can carry you. Keep your nose cold, your tail up, be a credit to your father. And your mother and your pack and all belonging to you. Next to come the saboteur, and that I'm bound to call you. Risk your life to save a life with the strength of the law behind you. Rituals, traditions, they're just killing fields to you. Come you saboteur, be a good dog and true. Be a good dog and true, ever true to your master. Run the hare and fox as long as your good legs can carry you. Keep your nose cold, your tail up, be a credit to your father. And your mother and your pack and all belonging to you. Thank you. Right, moving on. And this is a song, one of 2 or 3 I did for the programme. I think it was called The Ballad of the Troubles. 30 Years of Conflict, in fact, that's what it was called. About the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Specifically in the 70s and 80s and stuff, and specifically about musicians trying to make their living while all this was going on. That's what we were talking about. And this is a song, it's called The Miami, and it's one I've continued to sing ever since I did it, in fact. And I recorded it on an album called Jack Common's Anthem way back in about 2008, and there's a great version of it actually with me playing guitar and Maggie Boyle singing the song as great, one of my favourite singers, Maggie Boyle, and we did a video programme called Maggie Boyle's Kitchen Songs, and Maggie sang the song and I played it. The Miami, of course, refers to the Miami Show Band, which was one of the most popular bands in Ireland, going back to the 60s and 70s. And a lot of us will remember, I think in 1976, that they were involved in a terrible terrorist incident on the border after a gig in Northern Ireland, going back home south to Dublin. And so this is a song called The Miami. We talked to one of the survivors because quite a few of the lads were killed, sadly. They were only young lads, they were only in their 20s. And we talked to one of the survivors of the incident. And he said that he'd actually been injured at the time, and he'd been lying, having been wounded, he'd been lying in a field on his back, and he could feel the rain on his face. And he said as long as he knew that rain, as long as he could feel it, then he knew he was still alive and he would survive. So he just kept that in his mind. So that's why the rain is mentioned in this song. So it's The Miami. And the song's actually ended up, my recording of it is in the Museum of the Troubles, along with one of the other songs that I did in Northern Ireland. So that's a big honour for me, because my folks came from County Tyrone. So this is The Miami. long and winding roads, up and down these counties, when the dance hall closes and you packed away your old guitar. Well, I bet we've driven down all of them, and the darkness never scared me, 'cause I'm so proud of the name that has taken us all this far. We are the Miami, ain't that the place where the rain don't fall? The Miami, now they're weeping in the old dance hall, weeping in the old dance hall. Now tell me where you go to forget those troubles and borders, where the orange and the green are just colours on a spotlit stage. And there's no ill divisions between this country's sons and daughters, and the music glides across the rhythms of a golden age, coming from the Miami, ain't that the place where the rain don't fall? The Miami, now they're weeping in the old dance hall, weeping in the old dance hall. There's France still singing like a dream across those dark moorland mountains, and Brian and Tony rock solid in the old front line, and the boys and girls around this countryside all singing and shouting. They'll hear that show band music till the end of time, from the Miami, ain't that the place where the rain don't fall? The Miami, now they're weeping in the old dance hall, weeping in the old dance hall. They're weeping for the Miami, ain't that the place that the rain don't fall? The Miami, now they're weeping in the old dance hall, weeping in the old dance hall. It's the Miami. So that was from the one of the 2006 programs. And I think at that point we all felt that that was the end of it. It'd been a great experience. It was a tremendous team of background people and musicians and everything involved. I remember we recorded that first set of Radio Ballads programs at John Tam's studio down in Derbyshire, and at any hour of the day or night we'd be all there, and there'd be people like Chris Wilde and Julie Matthews, Bob Fox, Barry Coop, Kate Rusby, John McCusker, Andy on the squeeze box, Andy Cutting, of course, and it was just a tremendous thing to do, really. And then 3 or 4 years later, we did a one-off program called The Ballad of the Miners' Strike. It was the anniversary of the infamous coal miners' strike here in the UK. And again, I did a couple of songs for this program. One of them was called. One of them was about Arthur Scargill, the leader of the Miners' Union, So I called that one Arthur My Dear. Won't do that one. And this one is, again, one that stuck with me. I recorded this one on my album called What Cheer around the same time. And it's a song I've done a lot with my pals, the Pitman Poets. It's called the Judas Bus. And on the What Cheer recording, it's I share the vocals with a hero of mine, Lou Killen. The last recording she ever did, in fact, was singing with me on this back in 2010. So a special song all round, really. The Judas Bus. Goes by and they pass their pieces of silver. We can only stand and wonder, do they know not what they do? As the Judas Bus goes by, they obey each marching order from that Downing Street Medusa. Do they know not what they do? Black like B&M we cry, let it be of shame you die. How dare you look me in the eye as the Judas Bus goes by. As the Judas Bus goes by and the police stand shoulder to shoulder, you could almost think they were soldiers. Do they know not what they do? As the Judas Bus goes by, they obey that marching order from the Downing Street Medusa. Do they know not what they do? Black like B&M we cry, let it be of shame you die. How dare you look me in the eye as the Judas Bus goes by. Judas Bus goes by, we turn to ask our leaders, tell us who will clothe and feed us, for we know not what we'll do. As the Judas Bus goes by, we are scorned by state and nation, and we spit out our frustration, but we will do what we must do. Black like B&M we cry, let it be of shame you die. How dare you look me in the eye as the Judas Bus goes by. Black like B&M we cry, let it be of shame you die. How dare you look me in the eye as the Judas Bus goes by. So join the union while you may, don't wait till you die a day, for that might not be far away, you dirty black leg miner. Let it be of shame you die. Judas Bus. So that was a one-off program for us in 2010, and then lo and behold, the production company, Smooth Operations it was known in those days, were approached by the BBC to make another set of radio ballads, and this was going to be the ballad of the Olympics, and it was at the time of the London Olympics. And to be honest, most of us who were involved thought this was a very strange idea to be doing this. It didn't feel right. Didn't feel like in keeping with the whole Radio Ballads sort of vibe, you know. Anyway, how wrong we were, because it was an award-winning series when it came out, and I wrote loads and loads of songs for this one, and it was the same team got back together again, except for John Tams. John, I think at the time, John was involved in putting together the Warhorse thing. I think that's why he wasn't involved. He certainly wasn't around, and I certainly missed him, because John always brings a sense of theatre to whatever he does. So I kind of missed him on this one, but he came back later on. But for the Ballad of the Olympics, I don't think he was around much, if at all. So here's a couple of songs from the Ballad of the Olympics, and this one is about a programme from the, I think it was the 1906 London Olympics, the previous London Olympics. Was it 1906? Whenever it was, the first one anyway. And this is a song called The Ballad of Johnny and Durando. And Durando was a little Italian fella, a shoemaker, who actually won the marathon that year. But he won under very sort of contentious circumstances, because they carried him over the line. He was a big hero. He was only a tiny little fella apparently, and they ended up some of the fans threw him over the winning line, and the medal, he got the gold medal, but then they took it off him. They said it hadn't been legitimate the way he'd won. So the gold medal was given to the fellow who came in under his own steam in second place. It was called Johnny Hayes. He was an Irish-American guy, and he got the gold medal. And but it was very, very contentious, and remained so forevermore, really. So this is the Ballad of Johnny and Durando, and it's from the point of view not from Durando. There were songs written about Durando. Irving Berlin wrote a song about Durando. This is a song about Johnny Hayes, and it's a favourite song of mine, this one, so I'll give this a shot. Johnny Hayes nursing a beer in a bar in New Jersey. His legs may be done, but his memory still races along. When his faithful spectators head off to their homes by the Hudson, Johnny Hayes sits there alone with a beer and a song. He sings, they all recall Durando. His tale is the one always told. Yes, they all recall Durando, but at the end of the day, it was me, Johnny Hayes, who ran away with the gold. From Windsor to White City, pounding the pavements of London, the crowd in stunned wonder, baked by the sun's cruel shine. No queens or princesses, kings, no Irving Berlins sing my praises, but it was my own 2 feet, not helping hands, carried me across that line. And yet they all recall Durando. His tale is the one always told. Yes, they all recall Durando, but at the end of the day, it was me, Johnny Hayes, who ran away with the gold. of that tiny Italian, the working guy's hero, who was carried to victory while I came in first, fair and square. And what chance did I have in the races we ran that came after? With me just a paddy in pumps and him a vaudeville star. And so they all recall Durando, his tale is the one I was told. Yes, they all recall Durando, but at the end of the day it was me, Johnny Hayes, who ran away with the gold. Yes, they all recall Durando, his tale is the one I was told. Yes, they all recall Durando, but at the end of the day it was me, Johnny Hayes, who ran away with the gold. The Ballad of Johnny and Durando. Once again, me sticking up for the anti-hero. But this is a real hero, a hero of my dad's actually. Another from the that's him from the Olympics, but from the Munich Olympics between the wars, the Hitler Olympics as became known. And this is a song about Jesse Owens, who went back to America with 4 gold medals in his pocket, having, the story goes, been snubbed by Hitler. But also, the story also is that he was snubbed by his own president. He wasn't invited back to the White House as a medal winner, like all the rest of the athletes were. I don't know how true that is. So this is Jesse Owens' shoes. Jesse Owens, he worked again as a shoemaker when he was a kid, and there was also part of the program where they talked to one of the British athletes, a young girl who'd been a young girl at the time, and she'd gone in and got his autograph, and he'd been putting his shoes on at the time, and so they had a bit of a funny story she told about Jesse Owens with his massive shoes. He was also the first person to have Adidas sponsorship written on his shoes. So when I was trying to come up with something for the song, I thought, aha, Jesse Owens' shoes, hence this song. And I actually did sing this one on the radio programme with Martin Simpson playing bottleneck slide guitar on it. It sounded fab. When I recorded it myself on the Ballad Beyond album sometime later, I had another hero of mine, Rod Clements from Lindisfarne. He played bottleneck on my recording of it on my album. So all in all, again, one of my favourite songs, Jesse Owens' Shoes. The shoemaker's apprentice is straight off to work when his school is over and done. No matter how long the lesson, he'll never be late. Just look at that little boy run. They call him Jesse. Jesse, too young to be singing the blues. Jesse, Lord, let me run in Jesse Owens' shoes. Oh, gentleman Jesse's gonna run for the world with a name no one will ever forget. No black man's burden gonna slow him down. No way to 4 gold medals won't break no sweat on Jesse. Jesse, cried the Africans, the gypsies and Jews. Jesse, just can't believe their eyes. Everybody wants to shake his hand and feel the power of his winning ways, except for one angry man on the stand, turned his back on Jesse. Jesse, he went back to his room with his views. Jesse, Lord, let me run, and Jesse opened shoes. Jesse's nobody's puppet and he's nobody's pet. The man's got a family to feed. He was the first one to take to the track with the name that Mr. Adidas rode on his heels, and I don't blame Jesse. Jesse, he's a winner that we'll never lose. Jesse, Lord, let me run, and Jesse opened shoes. Jesse opened shoes. So that was from the Ballad of the Olympics, and then came the final BBC Radio Ballads series, which was the Ballad of the Great War, which we started, I guess, in 2014, and it was meant to be sort of go along 100 years after what was happening in the First World War. And again, some great people, some great songs were written for this series. Lots of people involved. John Tams came back into the fold, and my role, as well as coming up with some of the serious songs, was the producer John Leonard. He would say to me, "Jez, can you come up with something chirpy?" I became known as Chirpy Jez, and so because all the songs are so serious, he wanted a bit of a levity, not levity so much, but just that in that sort of soldier's, Tommy sort of British soldier sort of humour thing. So I came up with 3 or 4 of those type songs. One of them became quite a big hit for me. It was called The Wrong Bus. I'm not going to do that one because I've done that lots of times on these online shows. This is another one, and I'm going to try and maybe. Yes, just look at the words of some of this. This is called "It Was in the Nick of Time," and this came in a part of the programme where they talked. It was obviously they couldn't actually interview the soldiers from the First World War because sadly they were all gone by this time. But we had some recordings, some archive recordings, and there was one bit where they were all saying how what lucky escapes they'd had when they'd been fighting in the trenches. One of them in particular stuck out to me. It was a Northumbrian, an old man from Northumberland, and he had that real Northumberland accent. So he was saying, "Here, the shells were all pouring down around us," and he was hilarious. Honestly, he was laughing his head off, telling the story how he got his nose blown off. For God's sake, So, but it was just amazing the things that these guys went through. I mean, luckily, I can barely imagine it. This is called "In the Nick of Time." It was in the nick of time, and we ended up doing this one actually a big Armistice Day thing at the end of celebrate the end of the First World War. So in 2018 we did a thing for Radio 2 where the BBC Philharmonic Orchestra accompanied a whole bunch of us, and we did this song actually. When I did the demo for it, when I sent it off to the original thing, I whistled the tune, thinking that they would fill it in with a trumpet or with a piccolo or something. But what they did when we got to the Philharmonic Orchestra, they got a professional whistler in, and he was one of the top whistlers in the world. And he was a really nice fella. Sadly, I can't remember his name, but he sat next to me, a very nice man, and he got up and he whistled this bit. On the other side of me, my pal Bob Fox was also there, and he was sitting there, and he kept leaning over, and when the fella got up to whistle, Bob would lean over and tell me and say, "Go on, make him laugh, go on." So anyway, that was a bit of mischief on our part. We didn't do it. This is In the Nick of Time, and it goes like this. It was in the nick of time, I never felt a thing, another step, another second. I'd have heard the angels sing, you never would believe it. It's beyond the bleeding pale, St. Peter called me number, but I live to tell the tale. If you're choking for a smoke, they say don't take that third light. I tell you now they're talking Tommy Rot. I took third light last night, that sniper's bullet hit me back it in, bounced back and hit the bloke that fired the shot. It was in the nick of time, I never felt a thing, another step, another second. I'd have heard the angels sing, you never would believe it. It's beyond the bleeding pale, St. Peter called me number, but I live to tell the tale. Shell hole on the Somme, I bumped into me cousin Bob. He saved me from a hail of jerry guns. He bought it in Albert last year, but luckily for me, he's now working as an angel up in Mons. It was in the nick of time, I never felt a thing, another step, another second. I'd have heard the angels sing, you never would believe it. It's beyond the bleeding pale, St. Peter called me number, but I live to tell the tale. St. Peter called me number, but I live to tell the tale. You can see why they got a professional whistler in rather than me do it. Anyway, there you go. So that's In the Nick of Time. And I've got just a couple of 2 or 3 more songs to do for tonight, if you don't mind. And this was a song that I did actually for the Ballads of the Great War series, and it was meant to be the actual theme of the programme. For every programme, they'd have an opening piece of music and an ending piece of music right the way through the 4 programmes, 1 programme a year, and it would be. The words of this one, hang on a minute. There it is. There'd be 1 programme a year, and this was going to be the theme music to introduce it and to go out. In the end, again, John Tams came up with a really good idea, and he adopted the traditional song When Johnny Comes Marching Home, and he asked me to write words for every programme. So it was my lyrics to John's music, and he sang it at the beginning and end of every programme. But this was called Voices in the Dark, and this was used, I think, later on in the series. But this was again a song which I've never really sung. I think it was also used in a Bad Apple Theatre production called The Thankful Village. So it's we did put it out on a little EP of tracks from the soundtrack of that play. This is Voices in the Dark. It was like this. first voice we heard in the night, deep in the dark, deep in the dark, lamented the dimming of the light, deep in the dark. The lamps are going out, it said, when will we see them shine again? So said the voice in the night, that was 100 years ago. The next voice we heard in the night, deep in the dark, deep in the dark, it spoke not of wrong nor of right, deep in the dark. Your country needs you, it said, as if we were the ones to blame. So said the voice in the night, that was 100 years ago. The next voice we heard in the night, deep in the dark, spoke youthfully clear, strong and bright, deep in the dark. You dare to speak of duty, it said, when your duty to me you disown. So said the voice in the night, that was 100 years ago. Is it such a fine and noble thing to cut down fresh green shoots in spring? Is there anyone who'd rather sing in sorrow than in joy? The last voice we heard in the night, deep in the dark, deep in the dark, had a verse for doomed youth to recite, deep in the dark. What passing bells for these, it said, but choirs of wailing shells. So said the voice in the night, that was 100 years ago. So said the voice in the night, that was 100 years ago. Voices in the Dark, from the Ballad of the Great War. And that was the last Radio Ballads series we did for Radio 2. I can't really see there being any more, but you never know. We've said that on more than one occasion already. But we did in fact end up doing, with the whole team of us got back together again, and we did a thing called the Ballad of Child Migration, which didn't end up as a BBC thing. It ended up with the Victorian Albert Museum picked it up, and it was about the children that were sent off right away from Victorian times right through till the early 1960s. Deprived kids, sent off to better lives in Commonwealth countries like Rhodesia and New Zealand and Australia and Canada. And some of them had thrived and did very well, but a lot of them had a terrible time. And it's become known now, it's become very, it's a very shameful thing. And so we did this Ballad of Child Migration. And we did, as I say, we did it as a CD, but we did it as a tour as well. In fact, we were supposed to take it on tour just about 6 months ago around the UK, but obviously it hasn't happened. So this may happen again. It's the same team, Chris and Julie, and all the great musicians, and Boo Houadine, who's a great lad, great songwriter, as I'm sure you know. Boo's involved in it as well, and he's great fun to be around. So I'll finish off tonight. Thanks very much for listening. And this is from the Ballad of Child Migration. So not a radio ballad, but still one of the ballad things. And this is called Bernardo's Party Time. And Dr. Bernardo's is the sort of orphanage thing, as we all know. And very sort of a lot of God stuff involved in this. A little bit contentious again, some of the stuff we had to deal with. And but there was one photograph which stuck out for me from probably the late 1950s, with a bunch of very miserable looking kids on the dockside about to go off to Commonwealth countries. And one of them had a suitcase, and it with a sticker on it which said Bernardo's Party. So this is Bernardo's Party Time. And I'll finish with this one. Thank you very much for listening in, and take care of yourselves. And next month, if things remain the same as they are, then I'll maybe at the end of March, I'll maybe do another little gig like this. Maybe just sort of regular stuff or requests. A lot of people are requesting stuff, so I maybe should get all that together and do a night of just stuff people ask me to do. So if you've got any requests, send me an email through my website, and I'll see what I can do. And keep watching out for everybody else doing stuff, and hope to see you in reality before too long. This is Dr. Bernardo's, no, it's Bernardo's Party Time. And it goes like this. Thanks very much. Come gather little children, leave a life that's so bewildering. Stay like chosen pilgrims, and a new world you will find. Like God save little Moses, wash your necks and blow your noses. You'll be smelling sweet as roses at Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Step up the next in line and join Bernardo's party time. Oh, the angel sent a message with a ticket for a passage to a land of cake and sausages and all you'd have in mind. If you worry, then you shouldn't. Every dream will be a good one. Every meal will have a pudding at Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Step up the next in line and join Bernardo's party time. Suitcase, leave your teddy bear. There's beds enough already there. Joy and laughter everywhere. The sun can't help but shine. And the grace of our good Saviour will beat out all bad behaviour. You'll give thanks for what God gave you at Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Step up the next in line and join Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Bernardo's party time. Step up the next in line and join Bernardo's party time. Thank you very much. See you next time. Take care. Thanks for listening.